Hey everyone, Spencer here, and welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you an interview conducted by Jake Kane with Andy Humphrey. Andy owns sprinklersupply.store.com, and he's a very successful e-commerce entrepreneur there. But his story actually goes back quite a bit further, all the way back to like 2003, 2004. That's when he launched his very first e-commerce website selling Christmas lights, actually. And he's continued to own that business, I believe, throughout the years, but he's moved on, of course. And in fact, he was even on Shark Tank. The second season, he was on Shark Tank, and he had an mower was the brand that he had, and I'll let you find out whether or not he got a deal. But during this interview, you're going to hear a lot of advice from Andy on how to become an e-commerce entrepreneur, how to find products and launch products, and specifically, the discussion dives into how to avoid kind of the jungle scout trap of launching a product that everybody else is launching, right? And so how can you be a trailblazer and find those product ideas that are actually going to work? And then beyond that, how should you be getting more sales to your e-commerce store? Should you just be going on Amazon? What are some ideas for content marketing, YouTube, and other things that Andy is starting to implement in his business and is starting to see success from? So with that, here's Andy Humphrey and Jake talking about a whole lot of things about being an e-commerce entrepreneur. So I really hope that you enjoy this interview. And if you want to follow along with Andy, of course, go over to sprinklersupply.store.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jake Kane and I'm your host today. And I'm really excited to welcome Andy Humphrey to the podcast. Andy's got a lot of really exciting stories to tell us about his journey through e-commerce, appearing on Shark Tank, and kind of what he's got going on today. So we've got some really good stuff for anybody that's trying to or going to sell any products online. You're going to want to listen to this full show. So without further ado, Andy, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Jake, man, thanks so much. Took me 16 years, but I'm finally here.
Yes.
On the show.
You did it. Congratulations. I know this is a pinnacle of your career. No, we appreciate you taking the time to be on. Why don't you start out and give folks just a little bit of your professional background or educational background, sort of before you even got into e-commerce. I know that's going back a while, but give us a little bit of that journey that kind of led you into online business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a funny thing to think back to your younger self, and to me, I'm thinking back to when I first got out of college, got my job. I'm sitting there like, how the hell am I going to be successful? It's like you're in the job that you have, and you maybe see either someone else you work with or someone else that you want to be like, or even a home that you want, and you're in your job and you're like, God, man, this job, I don't know if this job's going to get me there.
Yeah.
How's it going to get me there? And so that's what I was thinking. Always knew what I wanted and realized that it wasn't going to be, working in my day job, that I was going to have to take control of that. Yeah. And so for me, control of that was like, how do I make $1 outside of my job?
Yeah.
All right. That's where my journey started.
Very cool. So what year was that approximately when you were starting to have these thoughts about, how am I going to get out of this job thing?
Yeah. So 2002 is when I graduated college, and 2004 is when I sold my first widget online.
Okay. And what was the first thing you sold online?
The first thing was Christmas lights.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
On a really super cheesy domain name called supertwinkle.com. I am like so embarrassed, but hey, it worked and it was catchy, and I made my first couple grand on supertwinkle.com.
Very nice. Yes, you always remember those first that first dollar, those first sales online, and it's very energizing. So, how did you why Christmas lights? Like, how did you at the beginning?
Yeah, so
how were you going through that process?
And I would actually recommend that everyone look around them. So, there's things that we have in front of us, or if they're not right in front of us, they're within like an arm's reach, either of ourselves or our network. And so for me, I was working for a wholesale distributor of irrigation, landscape lighting components. And then I was an account manager, so I was in sales. And part of my job was to teach contractors, these would be irrigation, and landscape type contractors, how to install Christmas lights as a service. And the lights that we were selling at the time this was before LED as well. So these lights were supposed to be new, innovative. The wire gauge was thicker. They were brighter. They were, lights that were better than what you could get at Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Home Depot, box stores.
Right.
And here I am, like my wheels are turning in my head because I'm wanting to do something.
Yeah.
And I said to the manufacturer, hey, is anybody selling these lights online? And they said, no. And so I said, that's when I thought, okay, these lights are supposed to be better than you can get locally at any box store, and no one's selling them online. Maybe that person could be me.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. So all right. So you start selling Christmas lights online. The journey begins, right? Did you, where did it go from there? Like how big did the Christmas light business get? Like how long were you in that business? And did you start to see like, hey, like Christmas lights, like this might be my path out of the 9 to 5, or did you like, no, like this probably isn't it, but I'm getting a good.
Well, it definitely enabled me to see the path out. Now, the path out is also a journey, because I also recommend to people that they may not need to get out. So I also didn't not like my job. I just didn't like the ceiling on what the income could be.
Okay.
Right? So I liked doing it, but I also knew there was an income ceiling that no matter how much time I put in or how much money I made for the company, there was going to be a ceiling where I was capped.
Yep.
And so, for that reason, I sort of kept, the Christmas light business, Super Twinkle, I guess you could call it on the side. But then I thought, I've got two incomes now. I've got my 9 to 5 income, and then I've got my before 9, after 5 weekend income. And what happened with the Christmas lights is that same manufacturer ended up inventing a Christmas tree storage system for artificial Christmas trees. And then they came to me and said, hey, you should try selling this Christmas tree bag online.
Yeah.
And I said, all right. And that worked as well, because once you start to learn the systems, and again, these are the systems from 2004,
right?
Similar but different than today. And me personally, what I did is I mastered Google AdWords, pay-per-click advertising.
Yeah.
And it did not take me long to realize that part of earning income is about what you sell and the average order size, shipping, sort of some of the metrics that go into what you sell. Because you could spend the same amount of time, effort, energy, learning, all of that to sell a $15 item as you can to sell a $100 item. So I sort of learned early on, given the choice, I'd rather sell a $100 item.
Sure.
Or more.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I sort of gave up the Christmas lights. Number one, because the average ticket size was smaller. Number two, because there was a fair amount of competition that started to develop around buying Christmas lights online, and shifted at that time to selling artificial or storage bags for artificial Christmas trees.
Okay. So you started selling the storage bags for artificial Christmas trees. And so how did that take off?
It's great. And I still do it today. The website's called treekeeperbag.com.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't make the product. The original manufacturer still makes the product. We're just now sort of figuring out how to hitch our wagons together, if you will.
Yeah.
Because 15 years ago, it wasn't really a direct to consumer model. So the manufacturer really focused on the wholesale side of the business. And I was focusing on e-commerce. But that's still running today. It's extremely seasonal, of course.
Sure. Wow.
But the way I look at it is that I was able to learn the craft or learn the trade. And I think that digital marketing, e-commerce, content writing, video, any of these things, they're trades, and you got to learn the craft. And once you know how it works, you can then start applying it to lots of different types of products or whatever your product interest might be.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great advice. So let's talk about then. So you've still got that going on, which is impressive. Like that's a long time in internet world to have one thing that you're still doing.
And believe me, it's been up and down. And at this point, I really focus more, and I've sort of learned this over time, to focus on profitability. So it was probably up until about 3 years ago that I just really actually cut back. I'm like, I don't need to be buying sales anymore. There's not a huge lifetime value. People don't buy a lot of things over time. And so what happened is I was essentially selling half my inventory at very low margin, but there was still burden on ordering inventory, warehousing it, importing it from China, all these things that just weren't making a lot of profit. So I said, you know what? I'd rather sell half as much product, but make the same amount of money.
Sure. Yeah, that's smart. So one thing I want to get into a little bit is, of course, you were on Shark Tank many moons ago, probably 10 years ago or so now?
Yeah, it was season 2. So actually exactly 10 years ago, 2011.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about, you're in the Christmas tree light business and then Christmas tree storage business. And I don't think it was that product that was on Shark Tank. So what?
Yeah, no, it was my,
you started at the same time and that's what led you there?
Yeah, basically, I, in my pursuit of niche products, let's use the niche pursuits, which I think is fantastic. And I'm a big believer in finding a niche. Mm-hmm. So in my pursuit of niche products, I came across the sort of old fashioned push reel lawnmower.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how I came across it, but I found that there was a market for it. It was gaining popularity. It was a relatively small package. So let's say it was $20 to ship. And on the higher end market of these lawnmowers, they were anywhere from $200 to $350. And they had a solid 50% margin. And no one had created a niche around it. And so that was sort of my aha moment. I thought, all right, not only are these sort of old-fashioned mowers making a comeback, but no one's really put any branding, marketing, or niche into this. And I thought, this is literally the most environmentally friendly or eco-friendly lawnmower on the face of the planet because there's no batteries, nothing. You just push it.
Right.
And so that's when I came up with the concept for ecomowers.com that was built all around these push lawnmowers.
Okay.
And so I started to do really well. And actually, the first year that the Fiskars Corporation released their push reel lawnmower, I shouldn't say we worked together, but I basically sold more of their push reel lawnmowers than all their retailers combined the first year. It was that niche.
Wow.
So then I had this idea to make my own and brand it. And part of that was to capitalize on the intellectual property they had. So I actually trademarked the name EcoMower and EcoMowers for retail. And what I wanted to do is build not just push lawn mowers, but lots of battery powered or environmentally friendly lawn equipment. And so that was the model. That was my pitch that I presented to Shark Tank. And of course, they saw me as the Yahoo with the push lawnmower that thought I could take over the world and ate me up and spit me out.
Okay. So was it just then when you started out, you were just drop shipping other people's mowers? You weren't.
I was drop shipping and then I started warehousing. So what I found with drop shipping, this is drop shipping, 10 years ago, was that the data that came back and forth from manufacturer or wholesaler or drop shipper to the retailer was pretty much non-existent. So there were many times I would send a drop ship order and it would literally not go out. The drop shipper just would not ship it.
Wow.
And so the customer experience that I wanted to provide, I just couldn't do it because I was then putting the customer experience in the hands of a third party. Okay. Expecting them to ship accurate, on time, et cetera. And it just really wasn't happening. Or then they email me back and say, hey, we're sold out of that. And it's like, what am I supposed to do now? Go back and tell the customer sorry? And so we did that. And it just felt like the only way for me to be in control of my business was to kind of be in control of it as close to end as possible.
Okay.
So then I started warehousing lawnmowers on my own. Okay.
But at the time you went into the tank, you basically were drop shipping with this idea.
I was actually already warehousing
at
that time. And what I was doing was I was using Shark Tank to sort of release my own mower. So up until then, I was selling other people's mowers or other people's products. Yeah. And I wanted to, you could call it private label. It wasn't quite, it was sort of a mix, but develop my own line of mowers and equipment.
Very nice. So let's take just a minute. I'm sure, I just have to believe I'm a big Shark Tank fan. I mean, probably the majority of people listening to us watch the show, like the show, watch the reruns on CNBC. So let's take a couple of minutes and just tell us about the highlights of that experience. So you reached out to them. I assume they didn't find you. Was it
Yeah,
hard
I mean,
to get
really,
on the show?
I watched season 1
Yeah.
and was intrigued by the whole thing. And I think I just ran a Google search, how to get on Shark Tank, found what looked like a random email address.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but it was something like Shark Tank casting at yahoo.com.
Okay.
Don't send an email to that. I totally made that up.
Right.
It was something like that. And so I crafted an email one night, fired it off, and completely forgot about it. 6 months later, I got a random phone call from a California, like Los Angeles phone number late at night, totally ignored it. Woke up in the morning, listened to the message, and it was a casting agent from Shark Tank.
Wow. Wow. So you get a call back, and then I'm assuming there's some layers you have to go through from there. Like, did you have to
There's a ton. Yeah. And really the layers never end. What happens is they do a great job of keeping the entrepreneur on the edge of their seat at all moments. So even if you're a shoo-in, let's say, they're never going to tell you that. They're going to keep you on the edge of your seat the whole process. I mean, literally, even, I think they said something to me like, hey, Andy, we know it's Thursday, but would you be available next Monday or Tuesday to come out here for filming? We don't know that you're coming yet,
right?
But can you just pencil in those days that they really kept you on the edge of your seat the whole time?
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So
and that keeps the anticipation up. That keeps the entrepreneur fully engaged. And it was an awesome experience. And my biggest win was I can go to any bar now and make a conversation with anyone.
Right. Right. Yeah. Any kind of group setting, where you need an interesting fact or something like that, you've got it made forever.
Forever. Right. Even if I got made fun of, which I totally did, I own it now. I'm not afraid.
So you didn't get a deal on the show, right? But did it go well? When you saw it air, I always wondered this because I've heard from other sharks, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard Damon speak, and that the pitches go way longer than what you see on TV. So they're slicing very small parts of that whole conversation.
Yes, totally.
So I just wonder how much in editing, what came out on TV, kind of how you felt like it went, or was it you watched it and were
some of it, but it was definitely television magic. So that's the way I describe Shark Tank, is it's television magic. And I think that if you're listening and you think about why you like Shark Tank, if you really think about it, number one is because it's entertaining.
Right.
And what makes it entertaining is it's relatable, and they're using concepts that are good concepts. But at the end of the day, their job is to entertain us and keep us watching. And so that's what they do. I mean, it's literally, and this is my own opinion, it's about the deals, but the deals are there to keep the viewers interested and make it entertaining.
Sure.
And it's really, television is entertainment. And so for entertainment purposes, they do a fantastic job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not enough you can do in 5 minutes on television to go through these deals and everything. So they do a great job of entertaining us. Yeah.
Yeah. So you walk out with no deal. I guess maybe deflating. I don't know if you were expecting a deal, or if you were just thrilled to be a part of it. But what would you say? I mean, did you have anything you walked away with? Maybe just more confidence, or anything you took away as a really learning sort of opportunity from being on Shark Tank? Did you feel like you grew from that process?
Well, yes. Yes, actually, that you should not bank your business or any hope and dream on one thing.
Okay.
It is not about one thing. The business world is not a one thing world. And so I don't know that I was, but that was my biggest takeaway, was that I think that slow improvements over time are what makes someone successful, not a one hit. And maybe music's the same way, right? One hit wonders, here today, gone tomorrow. Successful bands are the ones that have lots of great music over time. And so that was sort of my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. Very cool, man. That's an awesome experience. So the show goes live. Did what's like the follow up on the eco mowers? Like what happened? Did you get like a Shark Tank bump? Like, are you still doing that business too? Is that business gone? Like
Yeah, I was actually kind of disappointed by the bump.
Yeah.
And again, this was, 2011. So
Okay.
yes, people were on the internet, but I remember thinking in my mind what that traffic would have cost me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that much. So let's say, I think there was maybe 15,000 views on my website or 15,000 visitors, which
Wow.
yes, it's a lot, but that's not like 100,000 or 500,000 or 1,000,000. Right. So I just remember being slightly disappointed by the actual traffic that was generated.
Sure. So did you stick it out? Did you stick with the eco mower thing? Like,
Yeah, I did for a little while. Yep. I made a mower, imported it, and really just stopped doing it because there was other better uses for my time.
Okay.
And at that time, I'd already started Sprinkler Supply Store in 2010 and just knew that that was going to be a much bigger opportunity. So kind of just phased out eco mower as the inventory went down until there was really nothing left. And I still have a handful of mowers that I keep active because I do have trademarks for it. And I would potentially at some point like to sell or license the trademark out. So I've got some that's active, but the website itself is no longer.
Okay. All right. So you already mentioned Sprinkler Supply Store, and you got the sweet sign behind you there, which is super cool. So it sounds like that's obviously going pretty well, and that's a big part of your e-commerce business today. So why don't you talk a little bit about that of the early days, and then whatever you're kind of comfortable with sharing with as far as how that's going now and what all you're doing.
For sure. With Sprinkler Supply Store, I usually describe it almost as a passion mashup. So just going back on the story we've already talked about, I was working for an irrigation wholesale supplier when I started selling these Christmas lights. And I was trained as a landscape architect. Actually, my degree's in horticulture and landscape design. So first job out of college, I was doing landscape architecture work, CAD design. Then I learned the irrigation industry like 6 months into my job. And so this was before e-commerce, but I made a decision not to be in landscape anymore, but to focus on the irrigation industry. And so that kind of led me down the path of working for an irrigation supplier. Then I worked for a manufacturer that's called Netafim. They make drip tubing. So I was a regional sales manager for Netafim. And that sort of gave me networking opportunities. So I got to meet lots of suppliers all over the country, and I was still doing the e-commerce. So I had two passions, e-commerce and irrigation or sprinkler. And Sprinkler Supply Store is basically like a passion mashup, if you will, of my two business strengths, irrigation in the sprinkler industry and e-commerce. And no one was doing it. And so I formed a partnership with a wholesale supplier, started sprinklersupply.store.com. And the rest is kind of history.
Okay. So you saw then just that from being in the irrigation industry, was it just certain things that people just couldn't buy online at all? And
you couldn't really buy any of it. And the thing that was my trigger was none of the traditional wholesale players were in the game. Okay. And they're really still not in the game. We're sitting here in 2021 and they're still not really in the game. That's how far behind sometimes the traditional world is of non-sexy suppliers, right? Wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, they're just catching up to e-commerce.
Why do you think that is? I'm just curious. Like, it just seems
change is tough, man. So that's e-commerce is actually easy. So if you think about a big organization with 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 employees.
Yeah.
E-commerce is actually pretty easy. Getting somebody to do something different in their job is difficult. And so the e-commerce and the digital transformation, it's not really about e-commerce or digital. It's about change management. Yeah. And so a lot of times these big companies have trouble changing their systems and processes throughout the organization.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
That's why, man, it's kind of that simple.
Yeah. Wow. So I don't know what you're comfortable sharing, if anything, but give us an idea about the success you've had here with Sprinkler Supply Store and kind of how business is going today, if whatever terms you
So
want to put
number
that
one, we sell what I call OPP, other
Okay.
people's products.
Uh-huh.
And that's by design because the irrigation industry has lots and lots and lots of different products. And so, yeah, I could make a private label, hose end lawn sprinkler, probably put that on Amazon. And it might be something that I consider in the future. But right now we're trying to take the traditional experience of all of your parts and pieces for an irrigation system and bring it online. And what I've been developing, there's two parts. One is the sprinklersupply.store.com, the actual website. Then under the hood, what I built that I refer to is the Sprinkler Fulfillment Network.
Okay.
And I've strategically aligned with one of the large national wholesalers. And so we integrate and ship from 7 of their locations around the country. So it structurally looks like dropship because they're doing the shipping, but it's fully integrated. So our systems are all synced up. I can take in an order. It's got 10 parts. I can send 5 parts from the New York store, 5 parts from the California location. And it's fully integrated with inventory, pricing, orders. And so I look at those as 2 separate pieces. One's that sprinkler fulfillment network that we built, and the other one is the .com. But we're really just trying to, change the way people buy sprinkler parts. And part of that is also the sort of the human part of it. Like, what is the value, right?
Yeah.
The old wholesalers mentality was having parts on the shelf is the value. But you can get things today within 2 days. So just carrying an item and making it for sale isn't really value. And that's part of what's happening too with these traditional distributors and wholesalers, is that the value proposition is shifting. So we're having a lot of fun with it. We do sell over $1 million on Amazon, and 7 figures on our own store.
Wow.
And Amazon's part of it, but I can tell you that we've tried and tried and tried and tried, likely against terms of services, to convert Amazon shoppers to our website, and we just can't do it.
Really?
We've like given $20 gift certificates, no minimums, and they won't use them.
Wow. Just as like product inserts, basically,
Yeah.
like if they buy. Okay.
Yeah. And what we do find is on Amazon, somebody buy like one replacement part. So let's say Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones, not to be stereotyping, backs over a sprinkler. They'll go to Amazon and buy the one sprinkler. On our website, they'll buy a whole cart full of product. And so we really look at Amazon as just cash flow.
Yeah.
It's lower margin. It's not our customer. The likelihood of repeat business just isn't there. And so if someone's going to have that part available for sale, then that might as well be us. But it's just simply a cash flow that I want to take and reinvest it in our .com business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It makes sense. That sounds like a pretty slick, like intricate, probably automated setup that you have going. I'm thinking about the early stories you were sharing with, wholesaling in 2005, or drop shipping, I should say. And, oh, hey, we're out of that, and that kind of stuff, where it was a much more clunky process. It sounds like, today you're pretty dialed in, which, for somebody maybe that's starting out or whatever, might sound a little bit intimidating. Like, man, Andy's got it all together, and you do, which is great for a lot of this stuff. But
that's not how it started. Like, literally, that is not how it started. It was because that became the necessity. In order to grow, you have to scale. You have to figure out how the same amount of people, how you can get twice the amount of sales using the same amount of people. And so that's how we sort of figured it out. And I would say that when you're first starting out, go for it. Like, you don't need any automation because you have time on your side. And so manufacturer could tell you we're out of it. Then you just write a personal email to the customer, you tell them. But if you only have a handful of orders, that's okay, because you can babysit them. And so when you're first starting out, you're watching, or at least I was watching everything. And I babysat every customer interaction, every order. And then you can only babysit orders for so long before there's too many. And now you just can't babysit them all anymore. And you have to have good systems, processes, and automation.
Yeah. So you kind of work your way up to it. I mean, in the end, it looks, maybe intimidating, but in your case, right, like it started out kind of clunky, and like you said, babysitting customers, and then you just kind of figure it out as you go, which is pretty cool. So it's something that's attainable, but you've done it in steps, and you've been doing it for a long time.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, larger corporations can learn from this too. And I'm seeing this myself, is a lot of corporations want to anticipate everything that can go wrong and try to build a system up front for it.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is they spend all their time building all these systems for stuff they think can happen. And then when they do something else happens that they didn't plan for. And so what they really need to do is just take a risk, put something out there, then get the feedback, then build a system for it. And instead they want to sort of protect themselves against all this potential risk. And it's like, that's why I sort of come up with that trailblazing concept, because you could think that there's lions and tigers and bears and snakes and quicksand and waterfalls and all this shit in the jungle.
Right.
It might not be there. You have to just start walking.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love it. So let's get into, thank you, for sharing that story. And that's congratulations on how well things are going. That's fantastic. And so you've got a ton of experience and knowledge that you've sort of been talking about. And so I'd love to ask you some questions, and so we can talk to people listening to this podcast and get some of your advice and some of the things they can take away. If you don't care, just for somebody who's maybe listening that's pretty new to e-commerce, they've been thinking about it, maybe dipping their toe in it. You've mentioned a couple of things like drop shipping, selling other people's products, private labeling. I think you've done a little bit of. So if you could just kind of set the stage for somebody that's beginning to sell on some of those options about how you can break into it, and then just sort of your thoughts on it, like for somebody starting out, maybe some pros and cons, or just how you think about those things. Yeah,
the first thing I sort of think about is some of the soft skills that you need before you even sell anything. And so typically the thing I tell people is just go build a website. It seems counterintuitive because you would assume, oh, everyone knows how to build a website. But a lot of people that want to get into e-commerce, sell on Amazon, they have never launched a website. They may have at the minimum maybe bought a domain, and they might own that domain. And of course, a lot of you listening that know how to do that easy. But that's usually the first thing, is some soft skills like launching a website. That could be WordPress, that could be Wix, that could be Shopify. It does not matter. Launch a website, right? Just so you can get those skills, because then you start to think, well, what kind of a logo do I want? What do I want the homepage to look for? How am I going to make that hero image or that banner? Then you start to realize, I guess maybe, shoot, I got to learn Photoshop. I mean, I know I can get some stuff done on Fiverr, but what if I want to change it or tweak it? And so I usually recommend, learning how to launch a website, learning some basic photo editing skills. And again, it doesn't take much, a couple hours, you can learn the basics of Photoshop so that you are in control of what you can do. Because I see a lot of times people will invest in a product and they'll hire a graphic designer. What they do is they sort of hire and outsource all of this stuff, which costs them money. And then maybe it doesn't work out. But if it doesn't work out, you want to keep your cost to a minimum, and then you have all the skills, right? So if you do this all yourself, you are the builder, then you can adapt to change more quickly. So that's usually my recommendation, is if you want to build a house, be the builder, right? You want to sell something online, you got to be the web builder. Unless you have deep pockets and it doesn't matter if it fails, that's a completely different story. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So so start out by building it. I think that's great advice. Getting your hands dirty a little bit and learning through that. For people that are thinking about, should I be doing drop shipping? Should I be trying to create my own product? That sort of thing. Like for somebody that's getting started, I mean, what are some questions people maybe should be asking themselves? Like, how should they be figuring out which route to take? So there's two things. Number one is, yes, you do want to sell something. So, and it doesn't really matter what it is. You'd be better off selling something and making 5% or even making 0 just to go through the process of having something, selling it, acquiring the customer, shipping it, just to go through the motions. With all that in mind, I would look for something that has the potential to sell either the same thing again and again to a customer, or where you can launch more products and expand your product offering. So for instance, with my eco mower, it was a one hit wonder, one product. I mean, I could have sold other things, but they came for the big ticket mower. I had nothing else to sell them. And so I wasn't able to have this lifetime value in the customer. And so that is really something to consider. Sell something and then ask yourself, what can I sell this same customer next? And ideally be able to keep that customer for life. But even if you can't do that, the act of selling something for the first time is priceless.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great advice. So let's talk about, you mentioned the term Trailblazer earlier, and I want to get into that. And I know I shared with you before we started recording that I did a little bit of Amazon selling FBA type stuff a few years back. And I did that when I was working for Spencer full time. And so at the time, we used a lot of tools like Jungle Scout, trying to find just product ideas, just stuff to launch, something that was going to be not oversaturated, that sort of thing. But it was tough. I mean, I felt like it was really hard, and this was 4 or 5 years ago, so what do you tell people in terms of being a trailblazer and finding a product? How do you advise people that are going down that journey?
Yeah. Oh man, that resonates because I've used Jungle Scout too. And it's an interesting thing. I tend to think of it now almost when you use Jungle Scout, you're looking in the rear view mirror, not forward, because the data it's not that it's old, but it's not a full picture. So you don't know how many other thousands of people out there see the same thing and they saw it 3 months ago, right? And their private label product is in a container about ready to land in Long Beach. So by the time you drop your money to buy that private label product, they're already listed on Amazon, right? Because that's what everybody's doing.
Right. Yeah.
And so I tend to want someone to, and this is just me speaking personally, to like what they sell. So don't go looking for some random widget. If possible, find something that you already know something about, or that you can speak to, or that when you write up the bullets, you know exactly what it is because you're familiar with it. And to find stuff that is not where everyone is looking, right? So that's with Jungle Scout, everyone's going to be looking there.
Right.
And so when everyone's looking there, it will be competitive. If not next month, it'll be competitive next year. And instead look at the things that are around you, particularly things that maybe are, what you might call non-sexy items, more plain Jane. I'm sure that there are probably still products on staples.com that have a niche market for it on someone's own website.
Okay.
Right. Just because someone's selling Staples is selling office products doesn't mean you can't take an average everyday office product and make it cool again. Build a niche brand, build a niche site, give someone more use cases. Really, it's not just about the widget itself.
Okay.
And to niche down like that.
So if you are, somebody that's going through this process, and let's just say we're bypassing Jungle Scout and any similar tools like that. And it's a great point. It was funny hearing you describe that because you basically just talked out what was going through my brain about 5 years ago, as far as, I wonder if somebody else has already seen this and their product is going to launch next month, and then we're dead before we start.
And it happened to me. So I'm just saying it because it happened to me. I launched a vinyl record holder.
Oh, okay.
A bamboo vinyl record holder because I saw this on Jungle Scout. It was great. No one was selling it, and what I also didn't realize is what that person or hadn't thought through is what did that seller do to get in that position, to get those sales? Did they buy all those sales? Where did the traffic come from to boost their ranking? There's just more to it than what meets the eye sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. Where I was going to go with that was, like you said, looking around you. So in your case, you had kind of the irrigation background and that, landscaping and the lawnmower, and it all kind of ties together. Just curious, outside of that, anywhere else online, like, I don't know, like Facebook groups, or I'm just kind of throwing things out. Is there any other way outside of sort of the traditional tools that you would tell people to kind of help them in the brainstorming process?
Yeah, I think you just mentioned a great one. Facebook groups that are focused around your passion, wherever your passion might be, your hobby, things you're interested in. And then I don't really use Reddit, but I have heard that groups in Reddit, people will talk about, maybe product enhancements, things like that, anywhere you can get some real like user data, user feedback. And then, we're in a place with media that's different from 15 years ago. So all the social stuff today didn't really exist like we know it back then. And I think right now, depending on your product, it may be a product that is really not meant for Google shopping or Google AdWords. It might be one that's really designed to sell well on Pinterest, or maybe it's really something that's an Instagram, really a social product. And so I think that how you sell it can be very product specific also.
Okay.
And if you're an expert in Pinterest, maybe find something that you can match up with your expertise in that social media platform.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you balance this idea, which I totally agree with, on, being a trailblazer, finding something a little bit outside the box, that sort of thing. How do you balance that with, I guess, knowing or having some level of certainty that it's going to work? Like, one thing that I liked about Jungle Scout, or the reason that people use tools like that, is because you're able to see, sales rank and some of this data. And I'm sure you get a lot more of this than I do, but I have friends, family, whatever, because they know that I've sold on Amazon before, that come to me with invention type of ideas. Hey, Jake, what do you think about this? And they want to get my feedback like I'm some guru. But I found that a lot of times, and we've done this ourselves, as far as me and Spencer, when we were in the Amazon game, we would try to be almost too much of a trailblazer, where you come up with something that we found out that nobody was really looking for. So it's like a new product that's like, something that's totally different, and it just didn't sell. And so I don't know, do you have any any input on, is there like too much innovation that's possible? Like, how do you kind of do something?
Well, I think you also have to ask yourself, why didn't it sell? So a lot of times we don't answer that question, and it might be that there was no market for it on Amazon. That doesn't mean there wasn't a market for it somewhere. It might have been that it just wasn't worth your guys' interest to go figure out where that market was. And so that's part of, I'm a believer in having the passion for it, because then you'll keep trying.
Okay.
Right. So it might be you gave up too early. It might be you didn't. I don't know. But if it's something that you're really behind, you'll keep on trying, and eventually you will find a market for it. And then you can decide, I finally found the market. It's not quite as big as I wanted it to be, but holy crap, did I learn all this stuff along the way. And I like what you said about people come to you with inventions. That is so common. And I wish somebody would come to me after they've already taken lots of action towards their invention, because it's like they want to come to you with this idea and then think you're going to turn around and like hand them the solution to getting rich.
Right.
I want to be like, great, go do something. I don't care what you do. Go take some action and then come back and tell me how it went.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, no, exactly. There's no matter what it is, there's a long journey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No.
And that's really like it. And now that hate to say it, now that I'm getting older, I'm now realizing that I already have. I've already made it to the end, because there is no end. It is literally all about the journey. Every piece of it, like what you learn right here, right now, today, even when you're listening to this, even if it's in 6 months and you're listening to this, it's like, yeah, you can have a picture of what you want to get at the end, but that'll always change. There's always another and another and another and another. And so you really have to almost like look within and be super happy with the journey and with where you're at, and enjoying, the lessons and the learning along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I feel like I know how you're going to go with this. But I want to ask you this question anyway, based on some of the things you've said about just start a website, get out there and sell something, those sorts of things. But for somebody that's working a day job right now, maybe doesn't have a ton of savings to pour into inventory, how small do you suggest that people start? Because that first idea, who knows, if it's going to work, if it's actually going to sell through. What advice do you have there? I feel like that a lot of people get worried about, and again, just friends that I hear talk, should I get a patent on this? Like that sort of thing where they're,
No.
I feel like really far down the road and they haven't sold
Only
one.
getting a patent if you're willing to defend
So,
it. And most people would say, I'm not willing to defend it. Okay, well then don't get a patent.
right. So how small, I guess, do you tell people to start? Like what's some of your advice on?
As small as possible. I mean, literally, like that's why I say just if you want to make, if you want to make a grill accessory, let's say you want to make a new grill, like cleaning brush.
Okay.
Build the website, like start writing articles about it, because now you're taking steps along the way, and maybe then you can think about, what do you want your brand to be like? What colors, jive with your brand? What's the logo look like? Who's the customer? And just start taking those steps instead of thinking about just the widget, 100% widget. Just take some steps, buy the website, build it, start writing some content, make a logo, like take actionable steps, anywhere but back, like left, right, forward, half a step, run, like just start building. And you'll start to discover stuff and learn along the way. And if you had ordered that product as soon as you had the idea, instead of letting it sit and sort of almost like trying it on. So that's why I encourage someone to build a website, because it allows them to sort of try it on, see how it feels, and typically the first thought someone has isn't where they end up. And so by trying it on and doing stuff that's low cost, but still taking forward actions can be super, super valuable, because it does a couple things. One, it solidifies some confidence that they can do this because they're taking steps. Second, when they try it on, if they go to a party at a friend's house, they can say, hey, check out my new website. It's jakesbbq.com. It allows them to like put some stuff out into the world.
Right. Yeah. That's great advice, man. So what would you say, I guess, or do you have any general rules or parameters when you're looking for product ideas? Because I've heard people, especially with like Amazon FBA type stuff, set some things out there as far as how big products should be or price ranges that you want to retail at. And it seems like you've sold everything under the sun, from probably really tiny sprinkler parts to, eco lawnmowers, and shipped them. So you've kind of been on all sides of the spectrum. So do you encourage people to have those kinds of parameters going in as you're doing product research, or just wide open anything?
They should have some. Again, I would take making the sale first. So whatever they can find to take a sale, because you'll learn a lot by taking a sale. But afterwards, I think that the dollar value does matter. So I would probably recommend nothing less than $25 on Amazon, unless you can kit it up and make a pack, but you want your average sale to be no less than $25, unless it's like 90% profit margin. That would be an exception.
Yeah.
And then small is nice.
Yeah. Right.
Inside Amazon's oversized dimensions. So small is nice.
Right.
However, there are people that will do the opposite. I'm going to go for big because no one's doing big. But to me, that comes with some risk, because as soon as you have to start moving product around, if it's not selling, and big stuff is just expensive to ship. And I think that shipping is oftentimes something that can be hard to estimate ahead of time, and could be something that comes back to bite you if you're not careful. Okay. So, high price, good margin, small package would be perfect. And that's something that people can buy a lot of.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let me give you one more Amazon question, and then I want to get your take on e-commerce, today, and sort of where it's headed, and what your vision is there. So I know Amazon, I think you said earlier, is maybe 25% of your sales for your sprinkler supply store. What's changed, or what's it like out there right now, 2021? Like I said, for me personally, it's been a couple of years since I've sold Amazon FBA. With the pandemic and everybody buying everything on Amazon, in my imagination, I feel like it's probably gotten more competitive. But for somebody that's out there today selling a product on Amazon, what's changed, or what advice do you have for launching and just being successful in general? Like, what does it take today to be a successful retailer on Amazon?
Yeah. So there's a couple things, and some of it relates and some of it doesn't relate to our sprinkler business. So with the sprinkler business, we're kind of going after the low hanging fruit. When someone's looking to buy something, they know a model number, we're going to come in, we're going to try to sell it. It's like what I would call bottom of the funnel.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before, those are Amazon's customers. We can't get them to our website. So it's literally just positioning our product for Amazon's customers to buy it. If you want to make your own brand and your own product or private label, yes, you can get the flow of traffic from Amazon, but I would put a ton of thought into controlling your own audience, not relying on Amazon's audience, but to figure out and build your own audience that you are in control of, that you can send to Amazon if you want to, or you can send them to your own website if you want to, and not really be thinking about your business like, I'm going to have an Amazon business. Because what that really means is it's Amazon's business. It's not your business. And so I'd focus on building and capturing and maintaining your own audience. Then you can, maintain and sell things to your audience that they want, and you're in control of it.
Yeah. All right, Andy, I want to ask you one other question here. A lot of folks listening, Spencer's, sort of bread and butter, I think, or at least background when he quit his job was from building niche websites, so it's content websites that a lot of times, you're making money through ads or a lot of times maybe the Amazon affiliate program or other affiliate programs where you're sending people to buy somebody else's product and making a commission. So I'm sure a lot of folks listening maybe have already done a lot of that content piece that you talked about. So almost doing it in reverse. They've sort of built up the content side and maybe they've got a site that's getting traffic, they're making affiliate income. For people like that, what's your advice on, would you suggest that they start, private labeling a product or drop shipping a product or exploring things like that? And I don't know, what would you tell somebody that's already in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And this will allow me to use a phrase I haven't used yet, which is the company that kills you will look nothing like you. So the physical products companies are probably all worried about these content sites that generate all this traffic, because the person that's in control of the traffic is in control of the commerce. To me, it's much easier to make a widget than it is to build an audience and generate the traffic, because the traffic is a longer term game. And so if you're in control of the traffic, you are in control of that traffic. And so you should build whatever you want to call it, the physical product, to sit side by side with your content site. And then you can start unhitching your affiliates, because now you are in the driver's seat. And so for the commerce companies, the company that kills them will look nothing like them because they're content sites. So I think that's like a sleeping giant, is the content sites wake up and turn into commerce companies, and the commerce companies can't react because all the traffic was coming from the content sites.
Very cool. Very cool. So a quick follow-up on that. I mean, just in general terms, I'm sure it's going to look different. People could be in 1,000 different niches, but you mentioned Matt earlier. We were just complimentary of Matt's been on the Niche Pursuits podcast with his swim university site that he has a great YouTube channel for, a great website. I don't think Matt sells any of his own products, but he's been public with that site. So we can just use that as an example. Let's just say somebody like Matt, who has a swimming YouTube channel and a lot of people about swim care and maintenance. Like, what's the first step in that journey? Let's just say somebody like Matt said, you know what, you're right, I want to do that. Like, what does he do? Does he just start Googling like swimming wholesalers? Like, where do you start?
Well, somebody like knows their niche, unless they hired third-party, writers, and they don't know anything about what they're talking about. So we have to assume they know what they're talking about.
Okay.
And so then I would find products that are easy to make, that don't take any investment, molds, et cetera, and don't have liability, right? So I'm thinking in swim items or products, there could be chemical liabilities for some of these products. And I don't know, I'm just thinking.
Sure.
So I would try to find things that anyone could buy that is inexpensive to make and has benefits. So like in my spa, again, Matt would probably laugh at me. I put these like sponges. They're like shaped like turtles. And they're supposed to like collect the foam. And it's probably not a product that you'd want to sell because it's inexpensive. But again, there's no risk, no liability, with the longer term play being that Swim University might be able to make the best selling, chemicals or maintenance products for pools and spas. But to just use the knowledge that you have about your niche or about your content site to make, your first product.
Okay, cool. That's super helpful. Thank you. So talk about, you're sitting in this amazing looking studio. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. I'm assuming that this, you shoot quite a few videos in there. But, with your success that you're having, kind of running your own brand in your own store, what are some of the things, like what does it take to be, as far as selling off Amazon on your own website? What is it taking in 2021 to be successful, have a brand, set yourself apart, do some of these things that you're talking about? And what are the things that you're working on towards the future? Maybe a little bit of the future of e-commerce as you see it.
Yeah. So maybe, future proofing. First of all, there's no such thing, but
right.
I do think we're seeing a shift. So let's say when e-commerce first became a way to buy products, you could just put this pen on the internet. And if you're only one with this pen, someone's going to buy it from you. They don't even give a crap who you are, what your brand is, nothing, because you're the one person that has the pen. As soon as there's 2 stores that have the pen, now they have to make a choice between 2. And when there's 10, now they have to make a choice between 10. And then that choice becomes not dependent on the pen anymore. Same pen, 10 different places or 20 different places. So now you can provide them with more of an experience. And you could speak to that customer, because it could be that the way I sell this pen to a hunter might be different than a gymnast. I'm just picking 2 random personas, right?
Sure.
Same pen, 2 personas. You can build your niche and your brand around the persona. And so what I'm feeling like is that there always has been, but we've got commerce, content, and, sort of like media. And commerce and media are sort of like becoming one. Like commerce companies are sort of becoming media companies, and media companies are becoming commerce companies. And so you sort of have to have more than just the commerce. And so for me, that's why I decided to build this studio, because I hadn't focused really on the content or the community. I've been focused only on the commerce, making products available for sale. I wasn't a writer. I don't like to write. And so I hadn't written much of anything. And so now what I'm starting to do is we do take all of our product returns here to my warehouse. And when products come back on return, I'm starting to make, quick YouTube videos. So I'll take a product like this and, sort of show it off, explain it, talk about it. And then I have a graphic designer that quickly edits it into a video. It's not scripted. It's unedited. It's just literally like a one take. It's got an intro, the content, and the outro. And then I put it on the product page and put it on YouTube. And we're starting to get really good feedback. And it holds 2 purposes. One, we're so used to seeing just like 25 images of a product as it turns around that are just still fixed images. And so seeing something on video is much more engaging. It can be much more helpful. And then it allows me to sort of bring the personal, the persona to it, the transparency, the human element to it. So it doesn't just look like some corporate sales video. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is add that human element to develop the content and the community, because we've already got the commerce part of it. And so I want to be working on those things. So that's really what 2021 is about. And again, it's an experiment, and for me, I'm having to figure out how to get comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool, man. I love it. No, I could definitely see how, in your world, that kind of sets you apart, in the sprinkler supply. There's probably not a lot of people of your competitors that are shooting videos like you're doing, right? Are you sort of alone in that space? Like
pretty much alone. And I'm doing what's really simple. So again, these aren't how-tos. They're really just product overviews with a simple intro, simple outro, anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. And, what's interesting is, I think you guys know Matt from Swim University.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his videos are freaking incredible.
Right.
He has the content just dialed, but he doesn't have commerce. He does not sell parts on swimuniversity.com. So I'm really feeling like if a commerce company could team up with Swim University, they could be even greater. And that's what I'm feeling like. I don't have the content. I've got the commerce, but it's time for me to start making videos and putting us out there from that perspective. So we're seeing those two things like come together.
Yeah. Have you talked to Matt about this? Do you know Matt?
Briefly. Yeah. Briefly.
Yeah, no, you're right. His videos are awesome. That's very cool. So do you, with yours, I'm just curious, like you talked about, you get a return back, you shoot this little video, like, are you just kind of doing everything? So I would imagine you have to have a ton of SKUs and stuff. Like, are you doing any kind of research ahead of time? Like, hey, we should do a video about this. Or you just kind of like little obscure parts and you shoot a little 2-minute video and you'll just do it.
Yeah, right now it's kind of what comes back, but we did just go through some keyword research for sort of words that contain, how to, that I might not even have a product. I might just speak about because I know how sprinkler parts go together. I know how to fix things. That the next phase will be more generalized keywords. And so I think of keywords like a funnel, right? So when someone types in to Google a part number, they either want the instruction manual or they want to buy it. And so all of our marketing efforts have been bottom of funnel. I want them to type in the manufacturer and a model number so we can capture them, when their intent is to buy. And we're going to be starting to move up funnel, which means they're not going to buy today, but they might remember us and buy next month, next quarter, next year. And that's more generic, how to sprinkler this, that, where they're not coming in to buy something. And so again, I would probably be advice for anyone starting out is focus bottom of funnel, especially with advertising and keywords, nothing generic. You really want to try to find someone whose intent is to buy something. Right.
Yeah. So even if it is, I mentioned like just some obscure part, right? Like you don't really care if there's only a few people that are searching
someone
for it.
Maybe who's looking for this pen may not know the brand, but they want a red felt tip, fine point pen, the niche, right? The niche, like right down the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome, man. So you've talked a lot about content. And I love that advice. Like it makes so much sense. And it seems like that it's working well for you, which is fantastic. Outside of doing the videos, like, is there anything else that's kind of on your roadmap or strategies that you're following as far as content?
So the third one is that community. So I should restate commerce, content, community. Okay. And so we did just start what I call the Sprinkler Nerd community, which is for, professionals, irrigation contractors, people that do irrigation and sprinkler work for a living. And really my intent right now is not to sell them anything. Actually, it's just to build a helpful community of like-minded people, basically. And then there are also people that would listen to my podcast, which is the Sprinkler Nerd Show. Okay. And that just creates the other sort of pillar, if you will, that in 5 years, I feel like my business will be more sustainable, have a more solid foundation if I have all those three things bundled together versus standing individually.
Okay. I love it. So is that the Sprinkler Nerd? You've got the podcast going on. Do you have like
That's why I'm wearing this jacket. This is my nerd jacket.
Oh man. Yeah. You're looking the part. That's hilarious. That is so awesome. I love that. The sprinkler. It's just like, stuff like that to me, because I'm not into sprinklers, surprise, but you think that there's this community of people that are passionate about irrigation and sprinklers. It makes sense, but it's
right. That's a niche, man. It's there. It's like that. Sometimes you don't have to look far from what you're doing in your day job or your professional career to find ways to monetize that online.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, this is awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. I guess as we're kind of wrapping up, anything else that you would give, just parting thoughts to the Niche Pursuits audience, And then also feel free to talk about, if there's people want to get in touch with you or how they can kind of follow along with you, how they might do that.
Yeah. So I think number one, you got to make a choice whether you want to be someone who talks about ideas or someone who takes action on ideas. And so, like I said, just go build a website, do something, make a Facebook page, do anything to take the idea out of your head and make it more tangible so you can try it on. Because there's so much you learn there. You make, I made this website and I'm not into it anymore. Great. Then you can take the idea and actually like make it go away. Other times what I find is if I have an idea and I don't do something with it, I can't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And so it's like, don't let that idea occupy space unless you're going to do something with it. And if you want to, then you right now, like go do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be my advice is take small action. I'm not saying you need to go invest and lose a bunch of money and all this, but just go take some small action steps. And if people want to reach out to me, they can visit andyhumphrey.com. They can contact me through there. They can listen to the Sprinkler Nerd show, sprinklernerd.com, or find it on iTunes, and sprinklersupply.store.com, and as well as LinkedIn. If they want to hook up on LinkedIn, be happy to connect as well.
Very good. Well, Andy, thanks so much for your time, man. This was fantastic. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Enjoyed it.